dark chamber. Stone cold, the air thick with incense and ambition. Footsteps echo across marble. Slow, deliberate, unafraid. A silhouette emerges from the torchlight. Lean. Angular. Commanding. This is not a god. This is not a myth. This is a man. And yet, the world would never be the same after him. His face has stared back at us from coins and marble for 2,000 years. But who was he, really? Strip away the legend. Strip away the laurel wreath. What do you find? Julius Caesar. The most consequential human being who ever walked the streets of Rome. To know Caesar's face is to begin an archaeological detective story, spanning 2 millennia. We cannot simply look him up. We must piece him together, from cold marble, from stamped silver, from the words of men who stood close enough to smell his sweat. The most reliable portrait we possess is the Tusculum bust, discovered in Italy, and now housed in the Museum of Antiquities in Turin. Scholars date it to Caesar's own lifetime, between 50 and 44 BC. Making it the closest thing to a photograph we will ever have. Study it carefully. The face that stares back is not the face of Hollywood imagination. It is sharp, gaunt, deeply lined, a face carved by decades of campaigning, of sleepless nights, of relentless political calculation. The hairline recedes dramatically from the temples, something Caesar himself reportedly despised, and took extraordinary measures to disguise, combing thin strands of hair forward across his forehead. The Roman writer Suetonius, writing in the 2nd century AD, noted that of all the honors voted to him by the Senate, none pleased Caesar more than the right to wear a laurel wreath at all times, the perfect cover for his vanity. Even the most powerful man in the Roman world was self-conscious about going bald. He was tall, of fair complexion, round-limbed, rather full-faced, with eyes black and piercing. He enjoyed excellent health. He was something careless of his person, and was reproached with the affected manner in which he used to comb his thin locks over his bald forehead. Beyond the Tusculum bust, at least 3 other major sculptural portraits survive, that scholars attribute to Caesar's lifetime, or the early imperial period immediately following his death. The Arles bust, pulled from the Rhône River in France in 2007, caused immediate scholarly debate. Some experts, including archaeologist Luc Long, who led the excavation, argued it was the oldest surviving portrait of Caesar, carved around 46 BC, showing a strikingly aged and weathered face. Others remain skeptical, noting the lack of direct inscriptional evidence confirming the identification. This is the reality of ancient history. We deal in probabilities, not certainties. What all authenticated portraits agree upon is the essential architecture of the man. The commanding nose, the prominent cheekbones, the intense directness of the gaze. Ancient written sources add color to the stone. Caesar stood roughly 5 feet 7 inches tall by modern estimation, considerably above average for a Roman man of his era. He kept himself lean and physically active throughout his life. He was, by all accounts, electrically charismatic in person, the kind of man who could silence a room simply by entering it. Caesar's face was shaped as much by war as by genetics. By the time he reached his late 30s, he had stood on battlefields from Spain to Greece, from the Egyptian delta to the rainy forests of Gaul. These were not campaigns conducted from a safe distance. Caesar led from the front. Repeatedly. Recklessly. Gloriously. The Gallic Wars, fought between 58 and 50 BC, were the crucible that turned a brilliant but deeply indebted politician into the most feared military commander in the Roman world. Over 8 brutal years, Caesar's forces fought approximately 30 major engagements, and besieged over 800 towns across the territory of modern France, Belgium and Switzerland. His own account, the Commentari de Bello Gallico, written in crisp, deliberately immodest third-person prose, remains one of the most extraordinary military memoirs in human history. He writes of himself always as Caesar, never I, as if describing someone slightly larger than an ordinary man. The numbers are staggering. Ancient sources claim 1 million Gauls were killed, and another million enslaved during his campaigns. Figures that modern historians debate, but none dismiss entirely. Whatever the precise toll, the Gallic Wars remade the ancient world. And they remade Caesar's face, hardening it, sharpening it, carving those deep lines around the eyes and mouth that the stone portraits would later preserve forever. Caesar was so reckless in facing danger that his friends thought it went beyond what was warranted by his generalship. His enemies said he showed more love of victory than concern for his men's safety. War was the forge, but Rome was the stage. And on that stage, Caesar was the consummate performer. To understand his political genius, you must understand the republic he inhabited. A system of deliberate checks and balances designed specifically to prevent any single man from accumulating too much power. Caesar dismantled it piece by piece, and made each step seem not just inevitable but necessary. He was born in July, the month that would eventually be renamed for him, in approximately 100 BC, into the patrician gens Julia, a family of ancient lineage but modest current wealth. By his early 20s he was already being noticed. By his 30s he was engineering political alliances with a calculated boldness that left rivals breathless. The first triumvirate of 60 BC, his private power-sharing agreement with the general Pompey and the financier Crassus, was arguably the most consequential backroom deal in Western political history. It bypassed the Senate entirely. It was brilliant, it was technically unconstitutional. And it worked perfectly, for a time. Caesar understood something that all great politicians understand. Power is not seized, it is performed. His speeches in the Forum were legendary. His voice described by Cicero himself, the greatest orator of the age, as exceptionally powerful and mellifluous. He gestured emphatically. He made eye contact. He remembered names. In a city of 1 million people, he somehow made ordinary Romans feel personally seen by him. Watch how swiftly one man concentrated influence across military command, political office, and territorial control, a trajectory no Roman system was designed to contain. But what of the man inside the legend? What did Julius Caesar eat for breakfast? What kept him awake at night? Strip away the marble and the gold and the Senate's thunderous applause, and you find someone unmistakably, fascinatingly human. He suffered from epilepsy. Ancient sources describe episodes where he would fall, lose consciousness, and wake disoriented. An intensely vulnerable condition for a man whose entire political persona was built upon supreme self-control. He was a voracious reader and writer, composing poetry, grammatical treatises, and his famous military commentaries with equal facility. He slept remarkably little, often dictating letters to multiple scribes simultaneously, while traveling in his litter through the Italian countryside. He loved wine, though he was famously moderate in his consumption. He was extravagant in his hospitality, bankrupting himself multiple times to fund public banquets and spectacles for the Roman people. He owed so much money at one point in his 30s, that Crassus had to personally guarantee his debts, simply to allow him to leave Rome for his governorship in Spain. And he was deeply, repeatedly, magnificently in love. His relationships, with Cleopatra VII of Egypt, with the Roman noblewoman Servilia, with numerous others, were not the calculated alliances of a cold politician. They were by all evidence genuine and passionate. Cleopatra bore him a son, Caesarion, in 47 BC. He invited her to Rome. He placed her statue in the Temple of Venus Genetrix. He was not merely infatuated. He was, apparently, devoted. By the winter of 45 BC, Caesar had achieved something no Roman had achieved since the ancient kings. Total, unambiguous, permanent power. He was Dictator Perpetuo. Dictator in perpetuity. The title itself was the provocation. It named, openly, what everyone had long privately feared. The conspirators called themselves liberatores, the liberators. There were approximately 60 of them, drawn largely from the Senate. Men Caesar had pardoned after the civil war, men he had promoted, men who had dined at his table. On the morning of the 15th of March, 44 BC, the Ides of March by the Roman calendar, Caesar walked to the theatre of Pompeii, where the Senate was temporarily meeting, while the Curia Julia was under renovation. He had been warned. His wife Calpurnia had dreamed of his blood. A soothsayer had delivered the famous warning. He ignored them all. Why? Perhaps because he had become, in some deep sense, unable to imagine his own vulnerability. Perhaps because constant exposure to mortal danger had simply exhausted his capacity for fear. The attack was swift and overwhelming. 23 wounds. The ancient physician Antistius, who examined the body, reportedly concluded that only one had been fatal, a thrust to the chest. Caesar fell at the base of Pompey's statue. The ultimate irony, killed in the shadow of the man he had defeated. He pulled his toga over his face as he fell. The last gesture of a man who had spent a lifetime managing his appearance. Even in death, he would not let them see him undone. Let him be Caesar. "2,068 years later, his face is still everywhere. On the marble, in Turin. On the coin in the British Museum. In the genetic memory of a civilization that still measures power by the standards he set. The month of July bears his name. The title Caesar gave birth to the German Kaiser, the Russian Tsar, the Arabic Caesar. Every subsequent Roman emperor styled himself in relation to him. Napoleon studied him obsessively. Shakespeare gave him immortal words. And yet, look at the stone again. Look at the Tusculum bust. Not at what it represents. At what it actually shows. A tired man. A thinking man. A man carrying the enormous crushing weight of the world he had personally constructed. There is something in those carved eyes, something that no amount of marble can smooth away, that looks almost like doubt, almost like loneliness. Because, here is the truth about the face of power. It is always, underneath everything, just a human face, mortal, anxious, hoping it has made the right choices. Caesar stood in the Senate as the shadows closed in. He had seen armies broken. He had crossed the Rubicon. He had loved and conquered and reformed and transformed. And in that last moment, as 23 blades found him, he was simply a man. 65 years old. Tired. Brilliant. Irreplaceable. The face of power. Still human.